What happens when the greatest hockey player on the planet holds the entire sport hostage with a single decision that could either cement a dynasty or trigger the most shocking betrayal in NHL history? Right now, Connor McDavid sits at the center of a contract negotiation that's so much bigger than just dollars and cents. It's about loyalty, legacy, and whether the Edmonton Oilers can finally end their 35-year championship drought or watch their generational talent walk away into the sunset. The hockey world has been holding its collective breath since July 1st, when McDavid became eligible to sign what could be the most lucrative contract extension in NHL history. But here's what's driving fans absolutely insane. Instead of immediately committing to the team that drafted him first overall and built everything around his otherworldly talents, McDavid chose to take a wait-and-see approach. That's left an entire fan base questioning everything they thought they knew about their franchise cornerstone. This isn't just another contract negotiation. This is a referendum on whether small-market Canadian teams can still compete for generational superstars in an era where money talks louder than tradition, and where player movement has fundamentally altered the DNA of professional hockey. McDavid's decision to delay contract discussions isn't random. It's a masterclass in leverage that reveals just how much power elite athletes wield in today's NHL landscape. When the best player in the world tells his team he wants to wait and see, he's not just buying time to make a decision. He's sending a message that his commitment depends entirely on the organization's ability to prove they're serious about winning championships. The timing of this negotiation creates unprecedented pressure on Oilers management to demonstrate they've learned from past mistakes that cost them precious years of McDavid's prime. Every roster move, every coaching decision, and every front office strategy is now being evaluated through the lens of whether it convinces their superstar that Edmonton can deliver the Stanley Cup he's been chasing since entering the league. Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman's recent speculation that a deal could materialize between Olympic camp and the start of Oilers camp next month adds another layer of intrigue to this high-stakes chess match. This timeline suggests that McDavid is using the beginning of the season as his evaluation period, essentially giving the Oilers a few more months to prove they deserve his long-term commitment. The psychological impact on Edmonton's fan base cannot be understated. These are supporters who've endured decades of disappointment, false hopes, and near misses that have left deep emotional scars. The possibility that their franchise savior might be having second thoughts about his future in Alberta represents their worst nightmare becoming reality. What makes McDavid's approach even more calculated is how it forces the Oilers to operate under constant scrutiny. Every decision they make between now and when he signs will be interpreted as evidence of their championship commitment or lack thereof. This level of organizational pressure either produces greatness or creates the kind of desperation that leads to catastrophic mistakes. Leon Draisaitl's 8-year, $112 million extension signed last September provides the perfect blueprint for how McDavid's situation could unfold. But it also creates expectations that might be impossible to meet. When Edmonton locked up Draisaitl for $14 million annually, they weren't just securing a superstar, they were making a statement about their willingness to pay premium prices for elite talent. The problem is that McDavid isn't just better than Draisaitl, he's in a completely different stratosphere of impact and marketability. Industry insiders are speculating that McDavid's next contract could approach or even exceed $15 million annually, which would represent the largest deal in NHL history and fundamentally alter salary cap dynamics throughout the league. John Shannon's suggestion that McDavid might take a team-friendly contract introduces the most fascinating wrinkle in this entire saga. If the Oilers captain truly prioritizes winning over maximizing his earnings, it could create enough salary cap flexibility to build the championship roster that's eluded Edmonton for over 3 decades. But here's the catch that's keeping Oilers fans awake at night. What if McDavid's definition of team-friendly involves signing with a different organization that already has championship infrastructure in place? Taking less money to play for a contender isn't unprecedented in professional sports, and it would represent the ultimate betrayal of a fan base that supported him through every playoff disappointment. The September timeline that worked for Draisaitl might actually work against Edmonton in McDavid's case. Unlike his German teammate, McDavid has the luxury of evaluating how the team performs in the early part of the season before making his decision. If the Oilers struggle out of the gate, it could provide the justification he needs to explore other options. McDavid's contract decision doesn't just impact Edmonton, it has the potential to trigger a cascade of superstar movements that could completely redistribute talent throughout the NHL. Players like Kirill Kaprizov, Jack Eichel, and Adrian Kemp are all watching this situation closely, knowing that McDavid's choice could influence their own contract negotiations and career decisions. If McDavid signs a massive extension with Edmonton, it sends a message to other elite players that loyalty and patience can be rewarded even in smaller markets. This outcome would strengthen the competitive balance of the league by encouraging stars to stay with their original teams rather than constantly seeking greener pastures. However, if McDavid decides to explore free agency or forces a trade, it could open the floodgates for a new era of superstar mobility that makes the current landscape look stable by comparison. Other generational talents might start questioning their own commitments to teams that haven't delivered championships, creating a perpetual state of uncertainty that fundamentally changes how franchises approach roster construction. The financial implications extend far beyond individual contracts. McDavid's deal will likely establish new benchmarks for superstar compensation that force teams to make difficult decisions about salary cap allocation. Organizations might need to choose between paying one elite player or maintaining depth throughout their roster. The competitive ramifications are equally significant. If McDavid stays in Edmonton and they use his contract structure to build a championship contender, it validates the small market model and proves that proper management can overcome geographical and financial disadvantages. If he leaves, it might signal the beginning of the end for Canadian teams trying to compete with larger America markets. The urgency surrounding McDavid's contract extension isn't just about securing his services. It's about maximizing what might be the Oilers' best championship opportunity in over 3 decades. At 27 years old, McDavid is entering the prime years of his career with the experience and leadership qualities necessary to carry a team through the grueling playoff battles that determine Stanley Cup champions. Edmonton's recent playoff runs have demonstrated both the incredible heights they can reach with McDavid leading the way and the devastating lows that result when supporting pieces fail to execute in crucial moments. The 2024 Stanley Cup final appearance proved that this core is capable of competing at the highest level, but it also highlighted the razor-thin margins that separate championship dreams from heartbreaking defeats. The Oilers' current roster construction creates a fascinating paradox that makes McDavid's decision even more complicated. They have enough talent to compete for championships right now, but their salary cap situation makes long-term improvements challenging without significant sacrifices. McDavid's contract terms could either provide the flexibility needed to maintain competitiveness or create constraints that force difficult personnel decisions. The pressure on general manager Stan Bowman to construct a championship-caliber supporting cast has never been higher. Every trade, free agent signing, and draft pick will be evaluated based on whether it brings the Oilers closer to ending their championship drought. The stakes are so high that a single poor decision could cost them their franchise cornerstone. Time is also working against Edmonton in ways that extend beyond McDavid's individual timeline. Other core players are aging, salary cap pressures are mounting, and competitive windows in professional sports are notoriously unpredictable. The Oilers might not get another opportunity like this one, making McDavid's decision the most crucial moment in franchise history since they drafted him in 2015. This contract negotiation represents everything that makes professional sports simultaneously thrilling and heartbreaking. The intersection of individual ambition, organizational competence, and fan loyalty colliding in ways that create lasting legacies or devastating disappointments. McDavid holds not just his own future in his hands, but the championship dreams of an entire city that's waited far too long for hockey glory. The next few weeks will determine whether Connor McDavid becomes the player who finally brings the Stanley Cup back to Edmonton or the superstar who broke a million hearts by choosing success over sentiment. Either way, his decision will echo through hockey history for decades to come. What's your gut feeling about where McDavid's heart really lies? Do you think he's genuinely committed to bringing a championship to Edmonton, or is this delay his way of preparing fans for an inevitable departure? Hit that like button if you're as invested in this saga as every Oilers fan, and let me know in the comments whether you think McDavid owes Edmonton his loyalty or has every right to chase championships wherever he can find them.